Now we will discuss rigid bodies. You see that the player already has one here, rigid body, and make sure if it's a 2D game, it's a 2D rigid body. This component here gives physics to the player, to an object. Okay, now you see here the first parameter here, dynamic. In this case is dynamic. That means this object will have mass, gravity, and some air resistance. But if you say it's kinematic, then that means it will not have any of those properties, and it can only be moved by script. And then static we use when we don't move at all. And I must say I almost never use this one. So dynamic means it has gravity, but first let me just change the collider on this. Let me put a box collider. Okay. So now, right now, if I play the scene here, the player should fall on the platform and not go through it. Okay, so you see, it just stays there. But let's say we change. So you see, we have mass here. We have used automass that will give it a mass automatically. I almost never use that. But we have the gravity, very important. If I set it 0, then it should just stay in place. This object should stay, the player should stay in the air. You see, so you can change gravity. 0 means no gravity, and you can put a negative value, I think, to move it. Oh, there's no, is it? Yeah, you can also put a negative value if you wanted the gravity to be inverted. Then let's see, very important here, constraints. Let's say we only want this guy to move regardless of it, if it's by script, the movement, or it collides with something. With this you can freeze position. So if I click X, for example, that means this player will not be able to move on the X-axis, and same for the Y. And Z, that just freezes rotation. So if I click this, the player will not rotate regardless of interactions with other objects. So that's it. Those are the main settings here. Let's go in the Visual Studio and talk about some functions. So like any other component, we create a variable and then get it with the get function. Okay, so now we have that rigid body in a variable. And let's say we want to jump, for example. So that can be done two ways. One is we add force to that rigid body like that. So this will add a force, like imagine this object gets hit by some other object. So you have to give it a direction in which direction this force moves the object. So let's say we want to jump, we say vector to up, so that's the direction, and then we modify it by some value. In this case I just written, but that can be a float here, a float variable. So that will add force in that direction. So that's for jumping, add force to jump. If you move it left and right, it's the same, but we just say just use the other directions. So that will just add force to move to the right. So we can add force like that, or we can change the velocity. So the velocity of the rigid body represents both the direction and the speed in which the object is moving. So if I say velocity, with 2D is a little bit simpler because you can just select a certain axis. In the older versions of Unity, you were not able to do that, but here in the new one, the Unity 6, you can select a certain dimension of the velocity. So this will be just a x dimension of the velocity. So let's say we want to move on the X, want to move to the right. We just give it some value like that, and same applies for the Y. So you can say Y here as well. The velocity on the vertical axis. But you can also modify the whole velocity, and to do that you just say linear velocity, and then you create a vector 2. So new vector 2, and then you give it some values. Okay, so let's say like that, some values. um, let's say we want to know the velocity on a certain axis. Let's say we want to know if the velocity on an axis is bigger than some value. You just say like we did here. Let's say we want to know if the velocity on x-axis is bigger than 10. We just say that, and that's how you check if a velocity on an axis is bigger than some value. But and also let me show you how to stop movement. Let's say we want to stop movement completely. We say just linear velocity is now vector to 0. So vector to 0 means 0, 0 basically. That's how you stop movement. And to check if an object is moving, you just say velocity is different than a vector to 0. So this line here means check if it is moving. So if the velocity is different than 0, so there is some value on either axis, then that means it's moving. That's rigid body. But I'd like to go to the documentation 1 second. Because there might be some other things. Oh, yes, I forgot almost. How to rotate, how to add rotational force. So for that you can say add torque. That means add rotational force. And then I'm not sure here how this works actually. Oh, you just give it a value actually. So if you give it a positive value, I assume it is clockwise, and if you give it a negative value, it's the other way. So this means add a rotational force. That will add the force, but you can also modify the rotational velocity. So not rotation, it's called, I think, angular velocity. So yes, the angular velocity. So that means the rotation speed at and direction at a certain moment. So change rotational angular rotation speed and direction. And then you like in a torque, you just specify a value, I think. Oh, my bad. We say equal, and then we give it a value like that. So that's if you want to change the velocity directly. And let's say we want to know if this object is has some rotational force. We say if this velocity is different than 0, then here we check if it's rotating. Check what is rotating. And let's see what else I can show you here. There is something important. Let me see. Rigid body remove constraints. Very important stuff. Okay, I will not go to each detail, but let's say the subject by default in the inspector here we freeze rotation like that, and let's say we freeze all of them. Okay, how do we revert this back to normal, to no constraints? For that you have to say constraints like that equal to rigid body constraints to d none. So this uh, disable all constraints, and there are other ways to select certain constraints to disable or enable them. I will not go into that. You can find that on the internet. So that's it for rigid body, I think. Let me just go one more time through this. Uh, yes, that's it for the rigid body.